So anybody who's been following this video series since I started it, this episode's probably going to be no surprise to you because this is the character that got me into DC Comics. We're talking Aquaman. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Batmaning of. This is the show where I take the rest of the DC universe and I make a movie like The Batman. And I think I'm going to do an episode about Batman too. That could be really fun and weird. But hey, we're not here to talk about Bruce Wayne today. We're talking about Arthur Curry. We're talking Aquaman today. Because as I said at the top of the show, and I've been saying pretty much since I got into comic books and DC Comics in particular, I really like Aquaman. And I knew when I was doing this show, this was going to be the hardest one to broach for me. Like, I can do a Superman one. It'll be challenging, but Superman I can do. I can do Wonder Woman, I can do Flash and Green Lantern. How do I do Aquaman? Because this is the character that really solidified my love of DC Comics. This is the character that got me into this world and this mythos. I love him. I love what he represents, and I think there's so much fun you could do with this character that I implore to see more people try. And that's the thing that I think we're slowly moving away from in terms of just like the cultural stigma of Aquaman. He's becoming a real character now. Because pretty much throughout the first couple inceptions of just popular culture, you know, SNL did it, a lot of like shows like The Big Bang Theory did it. They turned this guy into a joke. And I get it. You know, the Super Friends cartoon was silly and weird, and when you stack him next to other fan favorites, he doesn't hold up in that way. But this character actually is relevant and matters and plays a huge part into the larger mythos of the DC universe, and he's an interesting character and does a lot of great stuff. Much like other heroes we've talked about in this video, he is a chameleon. You can pretty much tell any kind of story with Aquaman, and in certain interpretations, he can be perceived as like the boisterous, loud-mouthed, strong guy, very old-school machismo, funny and silly. He can be the grizzled, gruff veteran who's just like a broken man trying to cling to any semblance of life he has left in him. He can be just a neutral talent that doesn't have anything else going for him. And he can just be a sad sack. And I think all of those are relevant characters. It's just interesting that you can do so much of this guy, and you could pretty much do anything to Aquaman that you can't really do to any other mainstay in the universe. Batman has to stay a certain way. Wonder Woman has to stay a certain way. Superman has to stay a certain way. You want to tell a really weird story where a guy loses a hand and he becomes a morbidly dark man fighting against the crimes of the ocean? You can do that with Aquaman. You want to tell a story of romance in a heartfelt world? You can do that with Aquaman. You want to make a weird road trip story with him and his wife and his kid in a cartoon? You can do that with Aquaman. You can do anything you want with this guy, and I think that's really cool. And my love for Aquaman definitely starts with my need to be different from other people. When people are just saying, like, I love Batman, I'm like, he's cool. But look at this guy that commands, like, 70% of the world. He takes control of the ocean, and that is his dominion. He runs it, he rules it, but he's a conflicted man of two worlds who doesn't fit into either of them. There is pain in there, there is sorrow in there, there is so much intensity and nuance in a character like that you can buy when he's angry, you can buy when he's sad, you can buy when he's happy. And just having all those different ranges to play off of and different experiences to pull from, it makes for a really compelling character and a really compelling narrative that can go into so many cool and interesting directions. I love seeing that for Aquaman. I just love the iconography because, you know, this channel is built on the idea of just like surfing culture, and I try to talk about that stuff. So when a character is steeply based in like the world of like the water and the ocean, and you have like these villains and these characters themed to that dominion, I just instantly connect to it because I like it. And there's just so much fun stuff you could do with that character, and it goes into so many interesting and creative directions. I think he's really interesting. I think there's so much to pull from and so much fun you can have there that some writers don't tap into and some, you know, readers aren't really interested in seeing. But I'm here to tell you, he is a very important, very prominent, very interesting guy in any interpretation you see. I started with the New 52. I went back and read other iterations, and it really made me love this character and just see the strength and nobility that comes from a man like this. Very Shakespearean compared to other characters in this world. Very much the rivalry of brothers, the rivalry of kingdoms, the rivalry of life and love and lust and all these things being portrayed through this one man who's a man of two worlds and doesn't fit into either. And sometimes he has to rule the one and protect the other. It's very fascinating, and there's so much depth to that I think gets overlooked in some people, but it's a very fascinating study. I want people to understand this character more and really respect him. And I think we're slowly moving away from that in terms of our culture. People are getting more accepting of Aquaman and opening up different interpretations of him. So I think that's really cool. I hope we see more of that. That whole thing was kind of my connection to the character. Again, my love for DC started with him. The first DC comic book I remember reading fully was the New 52 Aquaman run. And I just like, wow, this guy is pretty cool. I think I want to go back and see more of the world he's a part of. And my love for him starts there. As I've kind of matured, I have liked other characters more than Aquaman. But I will never hate this character. There's not an interpretation I don't like. There's not a story I don't think works. There's some that are bad, but you can try anything with him, and that's what I like to see. And what I really enjoy see coming from this character. Now, when we're talking about making a story and making a movie for Aquaman, I think one of the most important things to realize is you don't need to go too outlandish or too crazy. I'm mixed on the movie that we got for Aquaman. I think there's some good stuff in there, and there's some stuff in there that I don't think really works. It did too much. I think it told way too many stories at once and tried to like have all these things coming in and connecting them to way too much of a world. You should slow it down and pace it a little bit better. I talked about like the Shakespearean tragedy. You should really lean into that side of things where every action that's happening in the story is intense, it is engrossing. You're feeling the weight of every action, whether it's a small misdemeanor, whether it's a small action of romance or an action of betrayal. You need to feel that weight. You need to feel the characters in this universe alive and vibrant in these ways that we haven't particularly seen. I think that's something we should explore. And also, there is a fun nature to this guy. He roams the seven seas. He travels across this beautiful body of water and exploring all these beautiful places. Let's see that. Let's have some fun with that. I talked about how the Batman is like Chinatown, and I always do this for all my videos. Like, what is like something you could compare this to that just shows you like this is the style you want to go for? So for me, it was like I want to find something for Aquaman that's very similar to like those old Sinbad serials where it's like here is a character who's adventurous and strong, but there's still a built around mythos connecting him to a larger world. There's these creatures that already exist, these ideas that are already in play, and you're seeing this man who can be a little bit suave, a little bit cocky, but a little bit angry, getting involved in this world and doing some intense, crazy stuff. I think we could see that. Something I think really works for this character. Embrace the weird. I think the movie did that okay, but really embrace it. Really go balls to the wall crazy for your movie of Aquaman. It could be something impressive. Now, I always like to talk about the previous actors that we've seen play this role. There's been a couple just small ones on other shows. The Smallville one I don't think is really relevant. Alan Ritchson, yeah, you know what that was. It was fine. And then Jason Momoa's been doing it recently. He's got a new movie coming out. I have very mixed feelings on it. Like I said, there's some good stuff in there, there's some bad stuff in there. I think what works doesn't really come from him. He's trying to play too many different versions of a character, and then ultimately the movie he's in isn't the best written or the most engrossing, so it falls flat. But he is an aesthetic choice if he was playing a different looking Aquaman, or a different interpretation of Aquaman. Putting him in the classic suit, it makes sense, but maybe shave the beard and the hair, and maybe you could look better. Just saying. That's an Aquaman that you should have the harpoon hand for. Why else would you get Momoa? I don't know. But it's interesting. Not my choice, though. So, what would I actually want to see for an Aquaman movie? What's the story I'd want to go for? What is the idea I'd want to portray? First off, I want to stay something true to Aquaman that I think is very important. Your villain for your first movie needs to be Black Manta. He's one of the most important villains, I think, in DC Comics mythos because he represents something to the larger world, but so intimate to the Aquaman story. I want him to be intrinsically connected there, and I want him to be the kind of pirate guy that we sometimes see, but we just move away from that so much sometimes, just to like the merciless bounty hunter. So here's my pitch for a movie for Aquaman. It is early into his career. He is still developing his connection to the world of Atlantis. He knows the world there. They are trying to accept him as their king, but he still longs to be this adventurer. Maybe he has a previous history with other heroes of the land, and he's like, I have this calling to go back to my place of birth where I was, like this land, but I know I have to stay here and protect my kingdom. He's married to Mara, and they have a child. I want them to have a child, a young baby. It could be Andy or it could be Aquaman Jr., whatever you want it to be. You could do the male or female child. But during the story, an early encounter of Black Manta sends this man on a revenge path, and he kidnaps their child, thus sending Arthur onto a revenge path, and it becomes this betrayal of these two men who have this intrinsic history, vying for each other's betrayal, seeing who's going to be on top of this thing. Is it going to be Black Manta by kidnapping Arthur's child, or is it going to be Arthur coming back and getting his son back from Black Manta in this really interesting, just like high seas stakes game where you're just going around the ocean, going to different ships and different islands of this man searching for his child in this really interesting revenge thriller where he's fighting different creatures and monsters along the way, but he's still young, he's still new to this. This isn't the world he knows it to be. He's still figuring things out. It gives you the intensity and portrayal of the Shakespearean nature of Aquaman, and it gives you the swashbuckling fun of the Sinbad stuff, which Aquaman should explore too. Because Aquaman is a character on the high seas. Let's have some fun with the high seas and actually do something creative in there. And the marriage is important. I know there's some characters where I'm like, they shouldn't be together yet. I think an intrinsic part of Arthur is his connection to Mera, and now that they have a daughter in current continuity, I think you should put a child on screen for them, but give the actors who are playing them some actual chemistry so we could buy it. Now, who do you get to play Arthur Curry? Like, this is a big name, and one of the things I've been trying to do is sticking relatively close to an age range for all these characters. So my choice for Aquaman, a little bit different than other people I've picked before, is really just the opposite of Jason Momoa. If we're going to do Jason Momoa being that version of Aquaman on screen, let's get somebody that looks like the opposite of Jason Momoa to do the other version that he should be on screen. So my choice is Lewis Pullman, and he was recently in Top Gun Maverick, and I'm not too familiar with his body of work, but this kid, he's got an interesting look to him. It does seem like there's some like depth to the performances and some range he could portray. I think you do a fantastic job. And hey, since we're sticking in the realm of Top Gun Maverick, why not get Joseph Kosinski to direct this thing? Imagine the stylings of the epic shots in Maverick and seeing that for like the ocean and the depths of the sea. That could be really interesting to see and a great place to explore because he's never made an ugly film. This might be a fun challenge for a guy trying to do something new with his career. I could definitely see that happening. So look, I love Aquaman. I really like this character, and I want to see it done right with the right portrayals, the right performances, the right action and adventure and stories. And I think doing these kind of things like the brothers against brothers story has been played out, so let's do like the Pirate King against the King of the Seas. That could be a fun story to play up and might get people a little more interested in Aquaman. I say that even though his movie made $1 billion, but hey, sometimes you just got to swing for the fences and see what sticks. So that is going to do it for my Batmaning of Aquaman. What characters would you like to see me talk about? Please leave them in the comments below. We still have a bunch to come up, but can't wait to hear what you guys say. So thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.